aligned with rasa. Rasa means the sweet taste of transcendental, loving relationships with Krishna. See, this is what Krishna does. This is what God does. What does he do? It's not like he sits around on a cloud hurling thunderbolts at people. Let me see if I can get this one. Boom! You know, that's not God. That's a 7-year-old's idea of God. Really, what God is doing is he's spending eternity engaged in sweet relationships of exchanges of love between himself and his devotees. That's all God does. I mean, what would you want to do if you were God? If you had any power, all the power to do anything that you wanted to do, all you'd want to do is enjoy beautiful love relationships. Now, we're not God, but we can associate with God. And the way we do that is by following his devotees. God's existing devotees, Krishna's eternal devotees, can show us the way, how to engage in this devotional service. And when we follow in their footsteps, then we learn the methods gradually of how to advance in this service until we actually reach the spiritual world. And we can reach that consciousness in this body. We don't have to change the body. We can reach it while we're still engaged in supposedly ordinary activities. But when we take these activities and we engage them in the Lord's service, they become spiritualized. This is the first thing that we have to learn how to do. For example, everyone has to eat. We can't maintain our bodies if we don't take food. So what we do is we take ordinary food, nice vegetarian food, and we offer it to Krishna. Krishna doesn't accept non-vegetarian food. He doesn't accept contaminated food. He doesn't accept food that is in the mode of ignorance or passion. He only accepts food that's in the mode of ignorance. In the mode of goodness. And he gives instructions on how to prepare that kind of food in the Bhagavad-gītā. So it's not that we have to guess or speculate, but we simply take Krishna's instructions and we follow them. We just do what he says. Like if you love someone, don't you want to give them something that they like, something that they enjoy? You know, if you really love somebody and you know that they like delicious vegetarian food, then you prepare that and you offer it to them. This is just common sense, and this is ordinary thing. So what to speak of God? God is like us, only he's millions and millions of times greater than we are. But still the same drives are there, the same needs are there, the same urges are there, the same impulses are there, same qualities. But in those qualities he is perfect and he's unlimited. So he also wants to have relationships. He also wants to have pleasure. He also wants to have activities. He also wants to have variety. He wants to have love. He wants to have excitement. He wants to have interesting things to do. He wants to hang out with cool people. He wants to dress very nicely. He wants to have fun, dance, and play music, and do all the things that people do. But when he does them, they're perfect, and they're unlimited, and they're wonderful. You see? So Krishna also wants to eat. He also wants to enjoy food. He wants to enjoy different kinds of beauty. When we offer these nice things to him, then he actually relishes that. And then the remnants of those offerings become prasadam. And by taking prasadam, we cleanse ourselves of so many sinful reactions. Krishna says, the one who takes food who only takes food offered to me is excused from so many sins. He's cleansed of his sins. Whereas a person who likes to eat just to satisfy his tongue, they're simply eating sin. Why? Because there's so many living entities are hurt in the process of creating food. When from the beginning, when you're plowing the land, sometimes to make a field, they have to cut down trees. And that hurts the trees. And then when they plow the land, maybe they have to hurt so many worms and bugs and animals in the ground. And maybe when they water or irrigate the fields, maybe then so many little critters drown, and so on and so forth. Maybe even harvesting the food, causes pain to the plant. We don't really know because plants don't communicate very well, but we can imagine they're living entities too, so their bodies, when their bodies are cut and like that, they feel pain. So we can understand that there's so many, maybe accidental, maybe inadvertent, but still we're giving pain to so many living entities during the process of even creating vegetarian food, or to speak of animal food. But at least vegetarian food we can offer to Krishna, and all those sins are taken away. So even if we eat nice vegetarian food, if it's not offered to Krishna, it's full of sinful reactions. So if a person is taking in sinful reactions into their body, how are they going to enjoy? How are they going to be happy? How are they going to get free? They're simply going to get themselves into more bondage and into more suffering and more trouble. And we see this all the time. We see that even people who are intelligent, even people who are wise, they still maintain attachment to this material world. And because of that, they suffer. We have developed over many years a detachment, a feeling of, or a mood of detachment from the material world. And we deliberately don't make any strong relationships with people in this world. We stay with Krishna. We stay on the spiritual world because we don't want to form attachments in this material world. These are very dangerous. They cause suffering. They cause pain. They cause us to come back into the material realm and have to experience karma again. And we don't want that. We want to be free from all these things. That's why we engage in spiritual life. So I think it's enough that a person just approach Krishna, and all the love and attention and affection and the attachment and everything that they would invest in relationships in the material world, they should invest that in Krishna. They should invest that in Krishna consciousness, because in that way they'll actually get reciprocation of their love. You might say, well, how is that possible? You're here in the material world and Krishna is in the spiritual world. Well, wait a minute. I'm not this body. I'm just living in this body. I'm a spirit soul, and I'm a spiritual entity, and I live in the spiritual world. And I just come here to do a little service. And when my service is done, I go back to the spiritual world and I contemplate my relationship with Krishna. And this gives me full satisfaction. I don't need to have other relationships in this material world. I mean, we see other people. I saw my parents, for example, as they got older and older, and their chances of having a successful or fulfilling relationship in this world got less and less. They became more and more bitter. They became more and more angry. They became so frustrated, you know. I remember being a little boy and watching my uncle, he was actually my granduncle, my grandma's brother. He was doing some work around the house. And I mean, every other word was a cuss word, you know. He was a very unhappy person. And I remember wondering, you know, being 3 years old or something, and wondering, you know, why is he so angry all the time? Well, because he worked all his life for the same company. He was a milkman, milk delivery guy. Not to the houses, but to businesses, wholesale milk. And so his whole life, from the time he was a teenager, was throwing around these big, heavy containers of milk. And in the beginning, he drove a horse and team. a wagon and 4 horses. And towards the end of his life, he drove a state-of-the-art, air-conditioned semi-trailer. But still, he did the same thing for his whole life. The same mundane grind. Every day, every week, every month, every year. For his whole life long. Worked for the same company, the same location, the same job. I couldn't imagine that. I mean, no wonder he was angry. Huh? And by the time he got to retirement age, he had emphysema, he had back trouble, he had so many problems, and he couldn't enjoy life. So here he was, after all this work, he did it so faithfully for his whole life, he finally gets to the end, and he's finished. He can't enjoy life. His body is ruined, he's old.